Everybody keeps telling small business owners that the odds are against them. They say the data, the market, the big guys with all the money. But here's the truth. The underdogs who survive don't win because of funding or funnels. They win because their customers need them to exist. Hey guys, it's George, and today's episode is a love letter, and I mean that with love, to every small business owner who ever felt too small to scale, or I'm too late to the game, or I started too late, or the big guys are eating my lunch. Because if you've ever stared at your numbers and thought, man, do I even matter in this market? Does anybody notice me? Should I keep doing them? Then this one is for you. So welcome back to the Mind of George show. This is where we cut through the noise and get real about what it takes to build something meaningful. No tactics, no hacks. They are included, just not frequently. Just honest conversations about aligning who you are with what you do so that you can build a business that actually feels yours and is sustainable to scale. And if you're new here, welcome to the party. You've been rocking me for a while. You already know the game. Relationships will always beat algorithms. And today we're going to prove it in a very real, practical way because my guest is Sri Kaza. And Sri has played on both sides of the table. He's done big, shiny corporate strategy roles and in the trenches work with small business owners who are just trying to keep the lights on and the dreams alive. He has helped scale companies. He's led a small business lending company through COVID when hundreds of millions of dollars were at risk, and then turned those scars of his and stories into a book he wrote called Unconvention. And the whole premise of his work is simple, but it's kind of confronting because he says there is no such thing as too small to scale if your customers would actually miss you. So the underdog mindset isn't about victimhood. It's about owning yourself. It's about owning your positioning. It's about owning your proximity and owning your purpose in a world that constantly barrages us and tells us that we're not enough. And the businesses that survived when the world shut down, they didn't just have good products. They had communities that needed them to exist. And so in this conversation, we unpack all of those pieces. We talk about why trying to copy conventional strategy from big corporations is actually killing a lot of small businesses. We talk about how to think about differentiation when you feel like you're just another coach, another agency, another local business, another podcaster, another service provider. We talk about what it really means to be an underdog and how to play that position without becoming a martyr or getting stuck in it. And finally, like why you should never outsource your proximity to your customers and how to actually build it in a world that feels hyper connected and totally disconnected at the same time. And the three core principles Sri shared, he said he would leave every entrepreneur with. Build your strengths, stop being a lone wolf and ask for help. And remember, your real job is to be a problem solver. And so this episode might challenge some of your assumptions in the best way. It's not one of those optimize your funnel chats, which you know I never have, but this is about why your customers choose you, why they stick around, and how to build a business that people will fight to keep alive when things get hard. And so by the end, my hope is that you stop asking, am I big enough to matter? And start asking, am I meaningful enough that my customers would miss me if I disappeared? Because that's the real scoreboard. So grab a notebook, focus for this one. And if you're listening while you work and drive, just feel this one and come back to it for anything you need to take notes on. But if you've ever felt like the underdog, this episode will be a permission slip that maybe you needed, maybe you didn't know you needed, or maybe you just wanted. And so without further ado, let's dive into my conversation with the incredible Sri Kaza. All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Mind of George show, or I should say buckle in and get ready to go to church. I had the beautiful pleasure of meeting today's guest who's doing this podcast while traveling, but he's like, I want to do this. I want to help entrepreneurs. I want to get out here. And I'm really excited. And I said, strap in for church because I was reviewing the notes, the overview of the book, this gentleman's incredible repertoire of knowledge, perspective, and values. And I told him before the show, I would be completely okay if you didn't let me speak because I'm going to leave with pages of notes. And so today I have an incredible guest. His name is Sri Kaza. He's a business leader. He's worked with bootstrap companies all the way up to giant corporations, on strategy and entrepreneurship. He has more degrees than I do, which is none, but enough to hang up, from Michigan and Northwestern. And he's both played the game in the corporate ladder as well as the entrepreneurial ladder. And so he basically went from this whole world, transitioned to executive roles, ended up in leadership positions in different companies, and then shifted his perspective to help small business. And I think it's incredible. He has a brand new book coming out, which I'm excited to get my hands on, which is called Unconvention, which is taking all of his experience and truthfully playing a game of my love language, challenging all the quote unquote conventional corporate thinking and strategic thinking that we all get gaslit to believe, and truthfully empowering small businesses to succeed by, number one, staying true to their unique strengths. And so I'm really excited. I'm really honored to welcome him to the show. So Sri, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks for the big introduction, George. I appreciate it.
Hey, if you ever need a hype man for keynotes, podcast intros, like I think that's going to be my retirement plan, is I'm just going to hype up all these people I love. And I'm like, let's go.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, man.
Excited to be on.
I'm stoked to have you, and thank you for doing it while you travel as well. And you know, one of the things that I wanted to start with is I love this concept that you talk about of being like too small to scale. And I know personally, a lot of people listen to the show, the thousands of people I've consulted, is there's like this false belief that it has to look a certain way to actually start scaling. And you have this perspective that it's an advantage. And so I would love for you to kind of unpack that.
Absolutely. I think a lot of entrepreneurs who are looking to grow their business believe they need to find a lot of customers and get their product out to everybody. But what I've learned, and I learned it in the big businesses, I've learned it working with smaller businesses, is being differentiated and having something that is meaningful to your consumer or customer or client is far more important than having lots of them. I think it was Kevin Kelly said, have 1,000 true fans. The concept here is to get through any business, big or small, you're going to face all kinds of challenges, both personal and financial, as well as potentially market disruption, economic disruption. But when you have strong relationships and a unique and differentiated product for your customer base, they stick around. It helps you stay resilient. And so that's kind of the premise for a lot of the thinking that I had after COVID hit my customer base when I was running a small business lender. So many of the small businesses that I thought were performing kind of to what you'd expect conventional wisdom and conventional business strategy to have them go do, so many of them still struggled and failed. And conversely, there were so many who didn't follow conventional strategy that managed to survive. After peeling away things like, okay, yeah, some people got PPP funding. Some people were in places that weren't impacted by restrictions. The net of what I saw were businesses that survived against the odds were ones where they had customers or a community that just recognized their need to exist. Even though they didn't really have the financial wherewithal to pull it off by themselves, they had customers rallying behind them. And that, is irreplaceable. You didn't see people, standing outside of a Walmart or outside of a Kroger trying to keep Kroger open. But you did see people going and taking takeout away from their favorite dine-in restaurant, like twice a month, 3 times a month, but you don't eat there that often. Well, I really want to make sure they survive. Mm-hmm. Okay, got it, right? People were funding GoFundMe campaigns or doing all kinds of different things just to keep the businesses that they thought were important in their lives running. This didn't happen for every business. And there's a lot of businesses where they don't have that meaningful impact on their customer. They don't provide something that customer knows that they're going to miss, right? And so when it gets down to being too small, there's no such thing as too small. If you have enough people who you're impacting in a way that matters to them, you've got a business. How big that business is really about how many people out there will be able to feel that impact.
Okay. I love this. I could do an hour with you just on this alone and the questions and differentiators I love. I love the way that you just ended that, though, when you said that they're going to miss or that they're going to feel. And there's a lot of power in using the word there, meaning like the mission of our business is to provide value, to provide a relationship, to create a container, for lack of better terms, that's creating this shared experience. And another thing that you said that really stood out to me was these customers supported these people because they had a need for them to exist, not to sell a product, not to sell a service, not to be attached to what it looked like, but that the essence or the relationship with that customer dictated to that customer that this person or this business is more important than whatever product or service they sell, and I'm willing to invest or support that. And so I want to ask, because, one of the first things that you started with was being differentiated, and you also used the word meaningful, which I love. Can you give me like an example or two, since you consult and see so many entrepreneurs, of like how some products or service-based businesses that have embodied that, but like differentiated? If we're all selling the same product or we're all doing marketing consultant, like what are some examples of differentiation?
So I'm going to go back to a big corporation where I did work where something could not possibly be differentiated, but then somehow I learned how it was. I did work for a company that collected garbage.
Okay.
And they have landfills all over the country. And how is a landfill different than the next landfill? My job at the time was I could do a McKinsey style pricing study saying, hey, are you charging the right prices? How do you go and make sure you optimize your profit? But, this element of differentiation, they had a couple of different things. I was like, oh, really? So we handle certain types of chem or hazardous waste a certain way. We have availability at these hours of the day. We have, a faster gate and loading process. So they found some ways to be different, but you're just a landfill. But then like the biggest source of value in their differentiation when we did all of the pricing work was their location. They were on one side of the city and their competitor landfill was on the other side of the city. Great. So you're cheap to everybody who's close to you and picking up trash close to you because the cost of fuel and the time it takes to drive to the other side of town is just too high. So you're differentiated in the most bland place possible. You're still differentiated by your location. Now, that's not to say that every small business should say, hey, look, I'm differentiated because I'm on this block and the next guy's on some other block. But I use it to call out that, you don't have to go search for it. You have to recognize what it is.
Ooh,
a lot of times your differentiation is your personality, the touch that you put into your work. My favorite personal experiences come from the time I lived in Japan. I lived in Japan for about 1.5 years. I was selling software, so I didn't get the full appreciation of Japanese artisanship. I was out there trying to be American and efficient. But what you see there is huge numbers of independent small business owners running business to their personal standard. The term is shokunin, their pursuit of artistry, their pursuit of mastery of their subject. And, my first experience in this was something like me and 2 or 3 other coworkers who I'm just barely starting to get to know and barely learning how to communicate with. I ask them all, like, where are you guys going for lunch? And a few of them say they're going to get ramen. I'm like, oh, I love ramen. I've discovered a ramen place that I like too. Let's all go to ramen. We get out of the elevator, first floor it was a very tall building. We had a minute to talk about it. We all get out of the first floor and they all go in different directions. And I'm sitting there like, wait, I thought we were all going to go get ramen. And they're like, yeah, my ramen's this way. My ramen is that way. It's like, oh, the one I like is over there. I eat lunch by myself and I get to the ramen place I like. And it's maybe 7 seats, 8 seats, and a machine where you got to go and buy a little ticket to get the dish that you want. And you hand the ticket out to the only person there. Behind the counter is also the chef. fantastic flavor. It's the one that I love. Haven't found anything exactly like it ever since, but I found a few places I like that are close, that they just do the Shio buttercorn ramen the way he did it. Like that's kind of the thing. But I recognized then, and I recognize today, that everybody's got their own sense of flavor. And the master of my favorite ramen shop had his way. And he was very particular, did it exactly the way he wanted, and he had a loyal following. I would get there, I'd wait 10 minutes till there's an open seat. I'd get my little ticket, I'd sit down, I'd have my meal, I'd get out because there's people like waiting for me. And I recognized that they really just wanted to get to the food. And I realized I just wanted to get to the food. Everybody's got the same like equation in their head as to why they want to go to this guy. And every one of the other coworkers I had who all went to their own restaurants, they found their perfect guy. And this pursuit of perfection is possible because that's the differentiation between all of these different people. And there's going to be, or there are, customers who appreciate that, who recognize it and who value it. In this example, it is kind of on the small scale. So I don't want to put off every entrepreneur saying, look, you go commit 100% to exactly the way you want to do things. And maybe you'll be lucky to have 6 customers, right? So there's some flexibility needed, but that differentiation often comes from within. It comes from what you believe is right, what you believe customers should feel or should experience, and how they should be treated. I saw it too when I was with Tor Hagen at Viking Cruises. Viking Cruises, at the time I was working with them, was Viking River Cruises.
Yep.
And we were getting into the ocean cruise business. And this is a massive company. But he had a sense for his customers that nobody else did. And he had a vision for the way they were going to experience travel, which is, very, very different than most cruise lines. So, when I joined him and I'm asking about different questions about layout of the dining facility, or how we're going to go and make sure people get these experiences that you're looking for, he has a very strong sense of what they really want. And he would tell me, one of my favorites was they had a 6-top table where 6 people can sit at the table in a dining place. And then, there's no booths, or there's no like 2-top tables for the couples. There's all couples on cruises to sit together. And he says to me, these men have been married to their wives for 30 years or more. They don't want to spend dinner talking to their wife. And he says it so matter-of-factly. I'm sitting there thinking, what, you really say that? And, I hadn't been married to my wife for 30 years, so I couldn't speak to that. But his point was simple. These folks are going on a vacation. They want to meet people. They want to actually have conversations. None of them are out there saying, hey, I want to go on they're retirees. Like, none of these retirees are sitting there saying, I want to go on a cruise to get more alone time with my wife. And you don't get that in the market research. You don't get that in the observations, but you get that from being deeply connected to your customer and having a real tight vision for the experience. So he's created a vision that's uniquely the one that he believes is the right one. And he has a massive following of people who love that experience. So you can be differentiated, especially if it comes from within. And the scale is really a matter of, can you efficiently reach all the people who value that experience you're creating?
God, that is so good, Sri. I want to make a point, and maybe you have some thoughts to add on it, but right there at the end, I think you nailed one of the most important parts of creating that experience that is neglected, which you're not going to find it in data. You're not going to find it in market research. You're only going to find it in relationships with your customers or potential customers that you are trying to curate this experience for, in whatever lens of your business is. And I know for me, and you and I share similar things that we do in the world, right? Mine's marketing, customer journey, yours is consulting on these things. But the number one thing that always shocks me, and I was like, why are you guys locked in a room trying to solve this instead of being in relationship with the people who would give you the solutions? Like, call them, get on a video call with them, go reach out to them. And it's something that I see all the time as like a critical mistake, is people are trying to curate this experience or this product or this service, but they do it in an echo chamber and they never actually get the feedback loop, which is the short pass. It's literally like the keys to the kingdom. And it's something that I see all the time. And, for anybody listening to this, I also think one important point that I say to my clients a lot is, if you were to go through your own process, would you be a happy customer on the other side? And they always kind of look at me and they're like, and it goes to one of two places. Number one is they don't actually know what the experience of their product or process is.
Yep.
They've never actually bought their own product online, gotten the box in the mail, gotten the emails that come from it, or have never gone through their own onboarding process. Or the second one is they have, and they're like, no, I'd cancel. Like, I would never join that. And I was like, okay, so if
Yeah.
your personality is the thing that's attracting people in, and
Yeah.
you on your own wouldn't allow you or your family to go through it, that is a really good place to start. And so I
Oh my
wanted to
goodness.
throw that out there.
Yeah, totally. I mean, you have to have your standards apply. And when your standards apply, and there are some limitations, absolutely. But the reason I like sticking with keeping your standards and committing to them, it's a lot simpler to run a business where you know the quality because it comes from within. Big businesses, especially the ones that like to do the market research and do that data, they have all these specialized resources, and the people at the top don't have time to go talk to everybody. So that's fine. Like, you can run your business off of data. But it turns out being closer to the customer, being closer to your own values and your own purpose, they come through in your decisions a lot more effectively. And you make much better decisions because of your closeness.
Yeah, I actually, that's a perfect tie-in, because you said something at the beginning of that last section about personality. Like, your personality is what makes you unique and makes you different. And I love that. And I'm curious from that perspective, when it comes to personality, like, if I was defining personality, I would say the ingredients in personality is really your values, your standards, and then how you authentically project those into the marketplace or into the world. And so in your lens, which you had a lot of this clarity and like an economic uncertainty, which I would submit in 2025, people are still feeling. So how important are those values and authenticity for people right now? And like, how do they go about ensuring that they embody those?
So to me, if you don't know what those are, if you're not grounded in those particular values, you're at risk. I think about it like, you're a ship in the storm, right? Big ships and small ships, they're in trouble. But the small ships that are anchored and know where their place is have a much better chance of surviving the storm. And, sometimes it's hard to go and say, hey, just go by your gut and, expect it all to work. Or to say, hey, look, let your personality dictate how you run the business. You and I probably both know some examples where that's going to be a disaster.
Yes.
So we're not saying blindly just trust your gut. What I'm saying is there are a few things that make you unique. I call that your positioning. So it's either personal or something as simple as where you're located, right? It could be anywhere on that spectrum, but it makes you unique to the customers you serve. Your positioning is one of those core principles that you have to know and acknowledge and remind yourself of. Because if you can be grounded in your positioning, all the decisions during that storm are much more effective. The second piece is you've got proximity to your customers. Now, we just talked about how important it is to know your customer's perspective, how important it is to see them through that journey that they take, from just becoming aware of who you are all the way to why they stick around and continue to come back to you. Knowing how they see it and how they interact informs your decisions. So again, having a good sense of that and feeling connected to them and their experiences drives smart decisions. I found one of these examples. I was looking at counterintuitive success stories. I found there was a couple of different nail salons in Florida that all did kind of poorly during the lockdown, even though they weren't really tightly regulated. There wasn't like a bunch of government like standards. A whole bunch of them were doing really poorly, except for one that I found, where when I reached out, what I heard from her was, look, my customers are all very worried about COVID. They're worried about social distancing. They wanted to know that we're going to be wearing masks. They wanted to know. So I went in and I implemented them in my store anyway. And I told people about them. And I told my my staff about them. And I was able to be at 65% capacity, right? So I had to let some people go, but I was full at that 65% capacity all the time, every day. The same places nearby tried to run at 100% capacity and couldn't get filled up and didn't have enough people and they couldn't make money. And in that particular example, she just had a better feeling for her customers and thought about it from the perspective of her customers. And she happened to have customers who were sensitive to what was going on and they didn't want to go into a place where they might get sick. So they just waited until they heard from her that she was going to look out for them on her own. It's counterintuitive because I figured, hey, look, with no restrictions, wouldn't your business taken off? But I think a lot of people, a lot of customers, saw it differently. Even if the business wanted to stay open at 100% capacity, other customers saw it differently. So proximity and understanding your customer base is another critical principle that during times of challenge, like if you go to what does my customer want from me here, it'll prove you right on the outside, come out on the outside. And the last of the three principles that you have to really be grounded in, I call it purpose. And purpose is not just the let's make money and achieve some sort of business profitability or growth or whatever, but purpose is, George, as you mentioned, a mission statement for the business is one way to think about it. But even for the small business owner who is looking around saying, hey, look, I just want to take care of my family. That is purpose right then and there, right? A lot of folks look at their alternatives to taking care of their family and say, well, I could be employed by somebody or I could run my own business and I'd much prefer to not have a boss. Great. So your purpose may be as simple, I'll describe it as simple as saying, I want to take care of my family and be my own boss. Fantastic. Be in tune with that purpose. When you're in tune with that purpose, you will make better decisions when it comes down to work-life balance. It'll come down to what risks you're taking, all these things. Having it in your core value is why am I doing this? Makes those decisions more resilient. You don't take the chances to risk your purpose, even if it is a few bucks, or the other way around. When the dollars are dwindling and you're worried about dollars, you stay committed to that purpose because that's why you did this business. So those two things combine, as driving your resiliency, knowing your purpose and then, sticking to it.
I love it. Yeah. And I'm just going to add a little zinger on the wall. A mission statement or your purpose is not something you read on a piece of paper. It's not something you brief in a meeting. It's something that you embody. And the amount of companies that I've walked into and I was like, do you see what's on the wall? Like, are we ever gonna like practice these things? Right. Cause like wall art doesn't really help bring these in. And I love the way that you broke that down in that framework, potentially like positioning, proximity, and then purpose. And I want to ask you about proximity because I love it. And I think there's so many people in 2025 that feel like it's impossible to create proximity because we're in this digital world, right? There's this like, well, we used to do it at events or we used to do XYZ, or like, yeah, but it's just Instagram or it's just a DM. Is it really the same thing? And so I'm curious, like, what your advice or what your perspective is on creating proximity, because I believe I'm 100%, I'm in your church, like proximity is power all day. And so what is your advice or what have you seen that's a way to navigate that in this really I call it a hyper disconnected, connected world, meaning like we have access, but what's happening in that access is not authentic connection. It's more like check boxes, but we have the ability.
Yeah. I mean, it's really tough to develop real deep relationships through social media. But I'll tell you, while you're projecting on social media, it's not a one-way projection. And you can pick up a lot from the folks who follow you, the folks who listen to you. What you want to do at a bare minimum is explore and be curious. Now, this may not be easy and it may, consume a lot of time. So you have to balance that with many other priorities, but you've got to be able to know what your followers or the people who are engaging on you or the people who are big fans of you, what else they do with their time, what matters to them, right? You can't get tricked into thinking you're the only thing in their lives. In fact, if all you do is you read the engagement, it can really throw you off in terms of what you believe. both on the positive and the negative. I mean, it can inflate your head. It could kind of crush your heart. But when you go and discover these individuals, one trick I might recommend is go and click through and cyber stalk a couple of your followers, right? Go see what they're up to. Go look at who else they follow, what else they say to other people. Pick on some or go cyber stalk some that don't say anything, right? Because that's really the majority of who your followers are. And go learn about what else they like or do, or occasionally invite some people in. You got to be careful about inviting people in. I understand, but especially local, you should be inviting local in to go and meet them. Eye to eye, give you a sense of really who they are. It's tough. Depends on what you're selling and what service you're offering. A lot of times, the interaction through the physical service or physical product is pretty productive as well. But don't outsource all this to somebody else. Like, it's okay to get somebody else to collect the information, curate it for you, but you have to absorb it yourself. You have to know who your customers are or your followers are.
100%. I'm gonna give you your flowers for that. I'm gonna add some like remember this. And one of the big things that you said that I want everybody to really remember is we aren't the center of their lives. That doesn't mean they don't love us, that they don't care about us, that they're not invested in us, but we're running our businesses full time. They're interacting part-time to try to achieve a goal or result. Well, they have everything else going on. And I've seen it, and you said this as well. And I'm just really summarizing with some power here, so this lands for people. You can't read into either way of what you see, because their lack of engagement means nothing about you, and their engagement means nothing about you. It's just a piece of information that you get to leverage to determine how to use. Because I know personally, 20 plus years of doing this and having millions of followers and getting rid of them and building them again, I used to make up so many stories like, oh, I'm failing in business because like nobody's engaging with this. Come to find out, they're like, we never saw it. If we saw it, we 100% would have engaged this. Please don't stop doing it. Or why'd you close that thing?
Yeah.
And so those false beliefs, like fear is false evidence appearing real. I never went to the source. I never got in contact with, I had these dangerous assumptions and my gut was wrong. And I'm going to tie that to something you said earlier too, because we could agree. Just a gut driven business. I maybe 1 out of a million I've seen, but they have some strategy behind it. I think our intuition or our gut is in one hand, and then our structure is in the other, right? So with our gut, it's our values, our principles, but then structure is like best practices. And I think it's both, right? It's
you need them both. I think you don't, by the folks who listen to your program, they don't always have time for the structure and the data.
Yep.
And so I would always recommend it. And I think I'd, say, read the whole book, learn the whole framework, study the customer journey, study all of these. If you can, do it. It's going to create more value. Structure is always going to be helpful. But at the core of it, without values, without those principles behind you, you still can't navigate the structure, right? You need them both. You need them both. And as much of that structure you can get, take.
Yeah. And I want to tie this in too, because structure to me, like frameworks and processes in the first decade of my entrepreneurial journey, they were like bad words to me. They were like the cough medicine that I didn't want to drink. And I was like, what do you mean? You're putting me in a box. Like, how dare you? I'm not going to do it the same way. That's not why I'm an entrepreneur. I want to do it this way and this way. And I'm just owning this publicly for everybody. But then I've had some pretty big lessons. And I look at like me as a father, me as a partner, me as a friend, me with my fitness, me with my sleep, me with my food. The reason those succeed is not because of a lack of structure. They succeed because of the structure. It gives me something to measure against. It gives me something to make adjustments against. It gives me a baseline so that I have a come home point and be like, oh. And so I wanted to say that. And the last thing that I wanted to give your flowers on and really call out, do not try to outsource your proximity. Do not. That is like genuinely trying to hire somebody to come date your wife and wondering why she's filing divorce papers. It does not work. Can you buy the flowers and hire somebody to deliver them? 100%. But you better write the message on that card, and she
Oh
better
my
know that
goodness.
you bought them.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
And so I
That's,
just
I
wanted
love the
to,
analogy. That's so
I
right.
just
That's so right.
really wanted to highlight that because I'm like, yes, 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 and yes.
Yeah.
And I'm curious now, and I am actually just innately curious, right? I read your bio, I read your intro, right? But I also think in like hearing it, it almost seems counterintuitive to some people. You're at, Viking River Cruises at the time. You're at McKinsey. You're at all these big places. And then you take this massive turn to like, I'm going to go help small businesses, right? Like, I want to be different. I want to help them. Like, what's the story? Like, what led to that shift to go from that world to this world? And like, what got you here?
Yeah, to be honest, it was, they're more big companies. It was, I went to go and I do scale ups as an executive. I helped kind of grow and make the business bigger. I went to a company after Viking that was helping small businesses with tax credits. And maybe folks here on know about what the work opportunity tax credit is, or there's a few other tax credits out there for businesses if they hire, a number of employment tax credits. But in my learning to go scale this business up, I had to go and really understand the customer, right? I had to go and get that proximity that you and I have been talking about. And what I learned about the small business owners was it was inspiring and it was daunting. It was inspiring because these people have this fantastic entrepreneurial spirit. They want to bring something to the world. They've got all this energy that's consumed by keeping their ship afloat, maybe, or by kind of growing or dealing with all kinds of disaster. I like this saying, that a small business owner is the CEO of his company. He's also the head of HR. He's also the head of marketing. He's also the janitor, right? He's got everything, or she's got every last bit is on her plate at the end of the day, even if there might be somebody else who's supposed to do it, right? Which makes it really difficult if you're trying to sell them something, right? So I walk into an organization that's out there trying to sell tax credits. And let me describe to you how that phone call goes. It's like, hi, sir, did you know that you're not getting thousands of dollars in tax credits from the government? I can help you. What I need from you is all the social security numbers of everybody who works for you. And I can help you get maybe about $100 to $1,000 per employee that you hire every year. At some point in that conversation, the owner shut down and stopped paying attention, right? Mm-hmm. It might have been after hello because something in the store was on fire, but most definitely after they said, hey, I'm going to help you. I need something from you. Send me stuff. And even if they were engaged on the send me stuff, like when you start saying a social security number, that's when things start. So I have my team, they're like, oh yeah, it's because we have to ask the social, we have to do all this stuff. And when I go in, I meet some of these folks. It was never about, information security. It was about, that's a chore. You're going to ask me to do a chore so that you can make money. And that then and there was like the easiest way for me to say, okay, we have to totally think about this different. We have to say to these guys, let me just do you a service and I'm going to let you go. The service I'm going to do you here is I'm going to tell you about all of this tax credit stuff that you're probably not getting. I'm going to explain to you where it came from. I'm going to show you how you can go learn more about it. And I'm going to let you know that if you think that's too much work, I've got a whole team here who does this at a fraction of the cost that you'll of the money that comes back to you. And I'm just going to spend the time educating you. And if you're interested, right, or if you're not, that's fine. We'll have another conversation later about what you want to do about it. Change the whole conversation to I'm here to help. I know you don't have tons of time, so let me tell you the things that I think very important to you, and then let you go. That's looking at the problem from their side of the table, as opposed to from my side of the table as the guy trying to convince them to buy my services. As soon as you put yourself on their side of the table and you help them, you then start thinking about their lives and you say, hey, you actually are losing out on money. Money is really important to you and you're losing out on it. I'm sure you want it, but let me let you think about how much you want it first. And once they've thought about how much they want it, they're like, yes, I want it. Okay, now let me think hard about how am I going to go get it. I don't have anybody I can see within earshot who are going to go and prep the paperwork, go to the government and ask for all of this. So you're telling me you can do that? Great. Like, keep this as simple for me as possible, and we can do this. So, that kind of real connection to them as working with them in that world really got me excited about working with small businesses, and I could see so much more potential. It came down to, though, they're just not getting enough help on hiring and on financing. So I did a startup. I launched a startup to go do hiring analytics. Successful early on. We were able to show small businesses, who might turn over and who might not while they're going through the hiring process. We also learned a number of other things that could be really helpful to them. Now bigger companies like Indeed and ZipRecruiter are doing these same things. A later business I joined was a lending business. So I talked a little bit about that during COVID. We had lent out hundreds of millions of dollars to small businesses before COVID hit. And when they got shut down, we weren't going to earn our money. And this is where, again, I plugged back in to see what were they doing to survive. I was in the same boat. We had to survive as a business, as a lender who, with over $150 million like outstanding, waiting to come back, right? You're in trouble, right? Because that money wasn't yours. You borrowed it from somebody else to lend out. So now all of a sudden, it's not coming back to you. Your creditor is not happy with you, and your business is going to get shut down. So we're all going through, my customers and my business, we're all going through the same, let's survive this. Let's go and do something miraculous to get out of this challenge during COVID. And that's where I really said, hey, you know what? This is inspiring what these guys who've survived have done. And that's what got me started writing some of the book. Took me a bit because I still had to take the company out of its rut and get into a place where we could sell it, which we did. We were successful. And then, in a break after having sold that business, I'm now at a place where I can get this book out and go and spend a little bit of time giving back to a lot of small businesses.
Man, I love it. And I have to call out because it went by just in your story, but at no point where you're like, oh, we're going to close. We're going to just let this go. Like, we're going to throw in the towel, right? Like, all of us traded working 40 hours a week to work 80 hours a week for ourselves, right? But there's no quit in us, right? There's a dog in us to some degree. Yep. And I'm glad that you shared that story because I know you love talking about like this underdog mindset. And I would love your thoughts on it because you not only talk about it, but you've consulted tens of thousands of small businesses. You have a background in data and looking into this and seeing exactly, what drives people here. And so when it comes to this underdog mindset, like, how does somebody adopt that without, and this is the most important part, becoming a victim to it? Because like entrepreneurship is a choice, right? Yeah. Like, we choose this, and to some degree we choose to fall in love with the circus of uncertainty so that we can solve it. But like, because you've navigated this and seen it, like, I would love your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I like calling it the underdog mindset because, conventional wisdom says the odds are against you. Yep. You look at it, there's big guys out there with lots of money and lots of resources, IP, all of this stuff. And then you're going to get out there and say, wait, I've got to go and fight for business against guys who have tons more money and been around longer or whatever. The underdogs are the ones who heard from their friends and their closest confidants that they're going to fail. And the mindset then of like, why do you still go get in the ring is because, it's not that everybody around you is wrong, but they don't see what you see. They don't see the opportunity that you see, and they don't have the confidence in what you are able to do like you do. And so I love this. I love the term, and I like using the underdog mindset, and I call them those 3 principles we talked about. I call them the Underdog Principles, because those are the things that the underdog really has that people don't always see and they don't always recognize. The proximity, that purpose, their positioning Other people see that as, okay, well, you're positioning like you're small, you're niche, or proximity. No, you don't have data on customers. You're just going by who you know. Purpose, well, that's not profit. That's just like what you care about. All those things are why people call you the underdog, because they don't understand how much value that really has. And so, the underdog comes in and is pursuing something because he really believes in it. He's not in there because he just got tossed in. So the folks who choose entrepreneurship, I don't know that everybody does. Some are actually just chasing money. And you often see those are the ones who are discarded on the side of the road.
Mm-hmm.
But if they're chasing it in the face of criticism or doubt, right? There's a lot of doubters, but believe in it because of these things, because of these principles. Those are the ones that survive and succeed.
Mm. Yeah, I really, really resonate with that. You know what? This feels like a perfect time. I'm like really excited to read your book. I don't say that often. I mean, I tell people the truth and I'm like, no, this one I'm gonna dive into. And also, just for the open loop and non sequitur in my brain, as you were talking, have you ever read the book The Catalyst by Jonah Berger?
Oh, no, not yet.
Okay.
Please, I will.
I promise you, Sri, you're going to obsess about this book because it is the psychology required on what it takes to change somebody's mind and become a catalyst for their growth without creating codependency or making it about us, right? So it goes through like endowment, distance, uncertainty, corroborating evidence, and even your example of how in that lending company or in the tax credit company, they're like, oh, they were so bought in that this has worked for me, but you switched the perspective and used inversion theory. And so you will love that book. I've probably sold 10,000 copies of Jonah's book. I've read that book 200 times minimum, and I absolutely love it. But speaking of books, I don't actually ever ask anybody to do this who has a book, but like I would love it if you could personally like kind of tell us about the book and let everybody know where they can get it, because I'm really excited for this one, and I think everyone can really benefit massively.
Sure. Yeah. So Unconvention is it's written by, it's written in the first person. It's most more narrative and stories about a lot of the small businesses either I personally interacted with or I supported through one of my ventures. And it's also a lot of my experiences in big corporations. And what I tried to do with writing the book was to bring out that these frameworks, George, that you and I talked about, including the customer journey is one of my chapters.
Mm-hmm.
These frameworks are very powerful. And I started with this question of, everybody says the underdog, the small business is going to fail, but they seem to have survived. You highlight these three principles and say, well, they've got these three principles, but then is that enough? Or what happens in the structure? Do these structures work or they don't work? So I walk through different strategic frameworks, like how do you establish differentiation? How do you think about pricing? How do you comprehend the customer journey? What about building trust with your customers and building customer loyalty? There's a lot of great frameworks in there because I found them personally really valuable in big corporate consulting. And I saw small businesses using them to their advantage too. So then the book goes through these different stories about how these things are applied. And I also put in homework questions. I can't think of a better way to describe it. Just a couple of thought starters at the end of each of these framework chapters. Say, okay, so how do you think about your particular principles? How do you go and incorporate them into what you've learned about frameworks? And what I would recommend for folks who are interested in this stuff, you can come to my site and download a primer on the principles that'll explain the principles a little bit more and some of the questions. But this is important to kind of reevaluate your principles and rethink your business strategy on these dimensions, on a regular basis. Is that like every 6 months, every year? It's really good to just go through it again because the world evolves, your customers evolve, you personally evolve. So making sure you keep up with it, is very, very helpful. So it's written really for the small business owner.
Mm-hmm.
But I also tell anybody who works with small business, anybody who's a consultant in small businesses or tries to sell stuff to them, this is also still very productive. You read it, it'll help you see their world from their side of the table. Right? And say, okay, well, how can I help you? Right. So So it should be a fun read. It's narrative, so it's not one of those books with a ton of data and like follow this process. It's more just a learning exercise.
Yeah, my favorite. I'm not the analytical guy. I'm the human guy. Give me the stories. Is there an audiobook too?
There will be. It doesn't release until a few months. But
After.
The book, you can get the book on Amazon, or if you want to really support small businesses and you want to support the small bookstore owners, you can go to bookshop.org. And when you go there, you can put in your favorite bookstore, your local bookstore, and buy it. They'll get the credit for the sale. It's one of my favorite businesses to plug while I'm trying to sell the book.
I love it. And then what's the website for the book? You mentioned that for the primers.
Oh yeah, my website is just my name. It's sri-kaza.com. And you'll find the book. You'll find the Underdog Principles there. I keep a blog for small business owners, mostly just to read about current event topics.
I love it. So for everybody listening, we'll have everything linked in the show notes as well, but it's sri-kaza.com. Yep. And I'm intrigued. I love it. And we're getting near landing this plane. So I wanna take us out with one question. And I'm just really curious. So you've had a lot of personal experience, right? Like it reminds me a lot of me, where before I ever was a coach or a consultant, I had built it, I had done it, and then I found my purpose. And I joke, being the Oz behind everybody else's curtain, it's a way better place for my ego. Plus, I just love serving people. But you have this same dual perspective that I have, of not only do you do it with other companies, but you've also done it with yourself. And I find that that's one of the greatest gifts ever in this job, is like being on both sides of the table. And I'm curious, what are the 1 to 3 myths or lessons or takeaways or reminders that are very principle based, that you would leave people with, for somebody who has reinvented himself numerous times, and you're like, oh, that's not working. Great. We're going to go here. Oh, nope. We're not shutting down. We're going to be an underdog. We're going to get out of this. Great. We're going to think unconventionally and use some divergent thinking and get out of this. And plus the ones that you consult. I'm just curious, if somebody at the end of your life was like, hey, what are the 3 lessons that you wish everybody remembered when it comes to entrepreneurship or business that you want them to take away? I'm curious what your 3 would be.
All right. So one of them would be build to your strengths. So, this takes a lot of self-awareness. This takes an understanding of what you're good at and what you're not. And you can be really successful when you build around the things that you love to do and that you're good at. And if you recognize that, you can actually make adjustments and say, okay, well, you know what? I'm not great with numbers and accounting, so I will get an accountant, which I think pretty much every small business owner tells me this. And I'm like, I'm not sure you're not good with numbers, but I get that you're not good with accounting. So get an accountant. But, if you're good with people and you can build rapport and build trust, then put yourself in the front of the house, spending more time with the customers and less time planning out stock and inventory, et cetera. But build to your strengths, build to the things that make you happy. It creates a lot more resiliency and it gives you a lot more longevity in the work that you're doing. The second one, I would say, is ask for help.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Entrepreneurs tend to want to go off on their own and prove it. And they keep getting told, you're going to fail. This isn't going to work. So you get this mindset of, I'm here to prove everybody wrong. But that's not the right mindset. The mindset was, I'm here to go do something because I believe it can be done. And when you think about everybody else, they're not out there rooting for you to fail. They're not actually betting against you. They're just sharing their unsolicited opinion that your idea is not that great. All right. So don't forget that nobody does these things alone. No big thing or small thing really was built in somebody's basement. It was really because even if it was built in the basement, somebody's parents were paying for the basement and paying for the electricity to get it built. But go ask for help because people want to help. People love to see the underdog win. And so when you're out there willing to go and say, hey, look, I need you. I would benefit from working with you, or I actually don't know what I'm going to go do. I think I am going to go fail. What do you think I should go do? That actually gets something for you that you shouldn't be so embarrassed to ask for help. All right. So the those are the kind of biggest build around your strengths and ask for help. I would add, be a problem solver and remember that you're a problem solver to that whole mix. To me, I'm very in tune with that's the thing I like to do. But I think you have to embrace your role as a problem solver. You don't have to be every role in that company, but like when you have team members or when you have customers with a problem or some issue, just remember you're solving a problem for somebody. And if you think about it that way, then you get welcomed into that issue or interaction. And you're not, I hear this from firefighter a lot. Your job isn't to put out the fire. Your job is to solve the problem that this fire is causing. It may or may not be the same thing. And just be aware you're trying to solve problems.
I love that. Those are three really good ones. I agree 100%. Play to your strengths. Stop isolating and being a lone wolf and ask for help.
Yeah.
Because people love to serve and pour into people, but there is not one successful business you've ever seen that was accomplished by I. And I said this on a call yesterday, and I said the only thing that happens when you do that is you end up at the top of the mountain that you think or thought that you wanted to conquer, and you're standing there alone. And you'd rather go back down and be with everybody else than stand up there alone and wonder, where did everybody go? And the third one, be a problem solver, which I love, because the moment you think there's no problems or you figured it out, you might as well close the doors of your business already, because there's no such thing. Every solution creates a new problem. Every problem creates a new opportunity, and every opportunity gives you a new direction to go work, to go create impact and go be different. And so, brother, I'm grateful for this conversation. I am so blessed that you came and you shared and you dropped your wisdom. And I'm also equally as excited about your book. And so I think if I do the math correctly, everybody listening to this, the book is out already. So go get your hands on it. If I'm thinking about my schedule right in my brain of when this episode comes out, we will have everything linked in the show notes. The book is called Unconvention, correct?
Yep.
By Sri Kaza, Srikaza. You can get it on Amazon. You can get it at bookshop.org. Is that what you said? Bookshop.org,
Yep.
which I love. And I'm going to be recommending that to other people because I love supporting the small businesses and the way that works. But I think most importantly, everybody, and I say this at the end of every episode, don't let anything you heard today become shelf help. Let it become an invitation to put it into practice and try it, right? So there's something in here for you to take action on, whether it's your positioning, whether it's a better way you can get proximity. Maybe you decide to stop outsourcing dating your wife and take that back in house with your clients and customers, thinking about the experience on their side. There's a lot for you to chew on and most importantly, take action on. And so Sri, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me, George. Appreciate
Of course, man. So everybody, make sure you check them out. We'll have everything linked in the show notes. Everything will be in the description. And most importantly, remember that relationships will always beat algorithms. And the most important one is with yourself. And after today's episode, you will also understand that the second most important one is how you apply that to your customers. So we will either see you in the next episode or you will hear me in your earballs. But either way, we're out.